Alright guys, welcome to the Octagon Oracle Fight Night Nurmagomedov versus Song full card breakdown. How are you guys doing? I announced this stream a little bit late to say the absolute least, so I will probably give a little bit more time than usual for people to realize the stream exists. Oh no, what? How are you doing, Drew Doberschen? Bit early, an hour early, yeah. For early for UFC, fair enough. Thoughts on Tom Nolan going to City Kickboxing? The weird thing is just the timing. Like, I understand fighters transferring from smaller to bigger gyms at some point in their career, but why would you get a massive upset win over Ziam and then decide, like, oh, okay, now is the time I'm going to switch? It's just a little strange in my opinion, but I don't know. Maybe he was planning it for a while and it just ended up this was the timing. Hey, HP. We're literally starting. I'm not going to start the analysis yet, don't worry. But the first fight is like, why do they do this? Why do they insist on having like the lowest level Chinese fighter of all time opening up these cards? Oh, black screen. Oops. That fix it? That fixed it, right? My bad. Honestly, I may just straight up start the analysis for the first fight on normal time because I genuinely don't think anyone's going to care. People forget Ting Ming's corpse card against his Jose Enrique was next level. God. Yeah, that was one of the lowest level fights we've seen in UFC. And I think Jose Enrique actually has like some talent. He could go on to be something, but that fight was not it. Probably not going to do too many questions at the end, so we'll get them out of the way in the beginning. What do you think of Tom Nolan going to CKB? I just answered that, but basically, I do think it's weird timing, but he could have been planning it for a while and it just ended up being this way. So it's pretty normal for fighters to go to bigger gyms at some point in their career, but I do think it was strange timing given he just got the big upset win. Hamstring crammed like 7 times during BJJ today. That sucks. What did you think about the Scottish guy from Dana White's Contender Series? I missed the first half, so I'm going to have to rewatch a few of those. Like, of course, I missed the half that was actually entertaining. And I got to see Bella Mir got fraud checked, yeah. What's crazy is I don't think she is typically that bad. I do think she kind of froze up because from her tape, she does have more wrestling than that, at least. All right, we'll give it like a minute or two. I'm not going to start it very quickly, but I also don't want to wait too crazy long given that the first like fight, maybe a few fights. Let me look at the first few fights. Okay, after the first fight, it's actually not bad, but the first fight is absolute garbage. Apparently they signed Fazil even though he got slammed out. I heard people saying that, but I haven't seen anyone actually of like any credentialed person saying that, so I think it's just fans coping for now, but we'll see. Sportsbooks gave her a back to lose, maybe. Bellamir being a 60-1 favorite was still crazy. Yeah, it was crazy that it was like a bigger favorite than some of the biggest mismatches in history. Thoughts on the Gage versus Stan fight? It definitely looked like he took some time to wake up, but once he did, you guys saw what I was saying about him. Do you believe in the dead internet theory? I think it's like 60 to 70% true. He may be cursed with Robocop. You've gotten his last 6 fights wrong. Wait, let me see. Have I? I got... Yeah, I got Hernandez wrong. I got Bruno wrong. I got Kopylov wrong. I got Hermanson wrong. I got Kenny. Yeah, you're right. I got the last 6 wrong. I've never picked a Gregory Rodriguez fight correctly. That's hysterical. Meng Ding will show out for all the Chinese uncrafty negative head movement. Yeah, exactly. Didn't Ding just have the worst fight ever? Yeah, you would think he would get cut off that, but no. He has to open up this fight night so we can actually lose our minds before we even get into anything interesting. Alright, we'll start the first fight now because I just want to get this one over with, not gonna lie. So, starting with Ding Ming, he's terrible at everything. He spends most of the time shadowboxing, way out of range. He will explode into the pocket with the cross, but his accuracy with it is extraordinarily bad. Once he does get into the pocket, he'll also spam hooks, but he will somehow miss those hooks from point blank. Don't ask me how it's possible. I really don't know. He does apply a lot of forward pressure, at least, despite how inaccurate he is with everything. He is definitely willing to fight and engage, but he's extremely low level everywhere. Nelson is primarily a grappler, but he does definitely seem to have heavy hands. On the feet, he is looking to lunge in with a straight right. He can definitely be pulled into a brawl, and he'll just start swinging from there. His takedowns are mainly double legs. On the ground, he'll do a little bit of damage, then primarily look for the submission. He does love to drop his hands for seemingly absolutely no reason, so he does get clipped a lot as he is coming in. So, the Nelson tape is abysmal. Like, he's fighting guys with the worst records you can imagine, and even in those fights, he's not looking spectacular. So, this hurts me to say, but I am still going to pick Nelson to win a decision here, because I can't pick Ming to win a fight. Unless I know with like absolute certainty a fight is rigged, I will never be picking him to win a fight. So I will pick Nelson, despite the fact that I know pretty much nothing about Nelson, and I know that he hasn't fought a singular half-decent fighter in his career. So yeah, I'm just going to say that maybe he can do something. Yeah, maybe he could do something more than shadowboxing, at least, I hope. So yeah, I'm going to pick Nelson by decision. Alright, moving on for Zhang Jingnong versus Julia Pilastri. So, starting with Jingnong. So, she's a power puncher with a style kind of similar to Jessica Andrade. She does have better timing, usually, though. She tends to wait for an opening and then explode forwards with heavy hooks. She does a good job at mixing her targets between head and body. She has legitimately finished opponents with body shots before, so she definitely has some type of talent there. For the weight class, she does have ridiculous power. We will get to that. I mean, this is the technical breakdown from her tape. She can definitely slow down when she is forced into a very high-paced fight. The cardio concern isn't catastrophic, though, because she can fight across 5 rounds. The biggest question that we did face last time out, and we still are somewhat still facing, is that she fought at flyweight in the past, and now she is down at strawweight in the UFC. I'll move on to Palostri and then I'll give my commentary about Jignan's last performance. So Palostri's nickname is Psycho, and it's a very fitting nickname. I do definitely love her style. She throws out a lot of teeps and calf kicks on the outside. She's a bit more of a volume striker with her punches. She keeps her hands down at times and will throw longer combinations while full committing forwards. When she goes full offense, she will just start ignoring defense, but she is usually the more dangerous fighter, so it does tend to work. She doesn't have the best takedown defense, to say the least, meaning that she can't stuff a takedown for her life, but that is what it is. So I really thought that Yan Jignan was going to beat Angela Hill, just based off of her previous tape. Then after the performance, I was really confused how she seemingly did absolutely no damage to everything she threw despite being a power puncher. At first, I was like, okay, it might just be the weight class difference, but that's still a little bit weird. And then I was talking to one of my contacts, and he was like, you know she was probably juicing in one, right? And I was like, okay, that makes a lot more sense. I just hadn't considered that previously. So especially knowing that, the old tape may mean absolutely nothing here. So I can't say like Jingnan is even the power puncher that she's supposed to be, because I don't know if she'll have knockout power if she was juicing before, and she is not now. I do think that Palostri is a little bit of a better matchup for her because of the fact that Palostri is just slower. I mean, like, Palostri also has really no accord for defense in some regards. So if like she will take one to give one, as I was saying before, which if Jingnan has any power left, that might not be the best idea. But from what we've seen of Jignan's performances, yeah, I have to pick Palostri here. I'm going to pick Palostri by decision. I'm just not as high on that as some people are, because I do think this is a better matchup for Jingnan, since she will have a speed advantage here if nothing else. All right, moving on to Lawrence Liu versus Hector Santiago. Once we get through like the weird fights, I will start putting up the polls, but for like the fights that has a debutant that no one knows about, I'm just going to go through them quickly. Have a good night, HB. All right, so starting with Lawrence. Lawrence is a relatively well-rounded and fundamentally sound fighter. He has good chain wrestling and the ability to use striking to set up the wrestling. He will use a variety of wrestling entries and finishes. Recently, he has preferred starting with the single leg. He does use a high guard on the feet and just tends to stick with basic boxing combinations. He does also use elbows to punish bad entries into the clinch, and on the ground, he mainly focuses on ground and pound. He can get caught in wild movements or just have like very strange mistakes, like just randomly throwing a naked calf kick after having not done that for like 2 rounds in a row. So it is something to look out for, but it does seem like he's getting better at it. He also can be a little bit too reliant on the high guard and start getting hit if people like adapt to go around or through his guard and such. Santiago is a power puncher who only focuses on a few weapons. He's basically just going to throw the left hook and the right straight or overhand repetitively. He will do it both like proactively and to counter, but it's the same exact stuff every time. He doesn't really have much defense whatsoever. He just tries to throw better than you. He seemingly also has no takedown defense and got subbed by an absolute can not very long ago, to say the least. So I'm actually confused why the odds aren't like completely far gone here. This feels like one of the fights where it normally would be, because from what we know, Santiago can't stuff a takedown for his life and just has no ground game whatsoever. So, I mean, Lawrence should get him down and maul him. I'm going to pick Lawrence by TKO. Some people are taking the stab at sub here, and I understand that because, again, Santiago has been subbed before, but since Lawrence has never attempted a submission, I still think he's probably just going to get the TKO here, or at least attempt to go for the TKO. All right, moving on to Zhao Long versus Francisco Nuzzi. So, starting with Zhao Long, he is a pace-oriented striker. He throws in takedowns, but it's mainly just to mix stuff up and keep you guessing. On the feet, he's adjusted to throwing a lot of kicks on the outside. He does throw both high volume and in combinations constantly. Sometimes he will throw single punches on the outside, but he really just wants to get to like 4 to 5 punch combos on the inside. He will mix up the body work into combo as well. He also does better he does better later in fights. He generally loses early and kind of has to make a comeback. His defense is just moving backwards, so like longer combinations or stepping through with your strikes can definitely catch him clean. Nuzi is a southpaw striker. He uses a lot of kicks on the outside. He's mainly looking to just time his cross, but he will throw it in combinations with the 1-2 and like a hook cross, etc. While he does time kicks and try to land the cross through them, his own kicks have also been timed before. So it is a weird thing that he's able to create offensive opportunities with it, but not work on his own defense. He does have reasonable power in everything he throws, but he doesn't really have one-punch knockout power. He definitely seems like he has a weakness to wrestling, but there isn't crazy much tape on it, so it's hard to say for sure. A lot of people are acting like Zhao is a great fighter who's absolutely free here, which I don't really understand. Like, Zhao is a really bad striker. He gets rocked pretty much every fight he's in. It's a terrible look. I don't think he's going to be in the UFC that much longer. That being said, I think that because we haven't seen Nuzi have to evolve with his takedown defense, and Zhao is capable of mixing in the takedowns, I do have to lean towards a Zhao decision here. It's a very low confidence pick, though, because of the fact that Zhao isn't exactly high fight IQ, so I could see him just brawling and getting himself knocked out. Like, I would not be at all surprised here. But yeah, I'm going to lean towards Zhao falls behind early, gets clipped a few times, then realize he needs to mix in the takedowns. Once he starts doing that, he's able to win rounds 2 and 3, win a 29-28 decision. All right, moving on to Jack Jenkins versus Sean Woodson. I'll finally put up a poll for this. All right, poll is live. And Zhang is like a worse female Lineker. Yeah, I get what you mean. Who's your favorite prospect who's been on Contender Series this season? Honestly, I haven't been crazy high on any of them so far, at least that I've seen. Like, there have been some fun fights, but nothing that really jumped out at me. Thanks, HB. I remember Lou not looking great in his last fight. Yeah, I actually thought that Sulan Grombo won that. But that being said, like, Sulan Grombo is pretty fundamentally sound. And this is a very different matchup as well. You started hella early? Yeah, I definitely started early today. 64% for Jenkins so far. I'm not going to keep the poll open for too long. We will end it right here at 64% for Jenkins. Woodson has peak male belt valid. All right, so starting with Jenkins. Jenkins is very well rounded, but his biggest strength is definitely his kicks. His style really depends on what stance his opponent is in. If he's fighting a southpaw, he'll use a lot of body kicks to then set up the head kick. If he's fighting an orthodox fighter, he'll focus very heavily on the calf kick. His boxing is mainly pocket boxing. He'll use his jab a little bit on the outside, but then he really wants to get on the inside and throw hooks from there. He does actually have a variety of takedowns, and he is pretty good at scrambling on the mat. He will struggle with jabs a bit at times, though, probably because he needs to get to the pocket boxing, and he is a kicker, so his ability to close distance isn't as nuanced as you would want it to be for a pocket boxer, but it works out because he has both skill sets. He is also weirdly injury prone, and while it's not necessarily his fault, it's definitely something that needs to be mentioned. He has lost 2 fights because of injuries now, and he was winning both fights before he got injured. The Chepe fight, I forget if he broke his arm or dislocated his elbow or something along those lines. And then the Gabriel Santos fight, I forget if he tore his esophagus or something along those lines, and he had just dropped Santos before that. So it's weird because it's always going to decrease confidence in him. Anyways, moving on to Woodson. Woodson is an extremely rangy striker, to say the least. He switches stances a lot on the outside, and he'll wave his hands around to try to throw off his opponents. He'll commit to jabs and calf kicks mainly early into the fight. As the fight goes longer, he starts using combinations and needs to discourage his opponent from entering the pocket. The biggest issue is that if he can't use the knee or he just misses it, he doesn't really do a good job at doing anything when his opponent closes the distance. So he ends up in a weird position where he can't use any weapons because he's not really someone who uses elbows. So if his opponent gets past his reach, he's in a bit of trouble, and he kind of just ends up like running backwards. It's not the best look, to say the least. So this is basically going to be Woodson's jab versus Jenkins' calf kick, in my opinion. Both have a weakness towards each other's main weapon. Jenkins will probably run into the jab a fair amount, and Woodson has just not shown good calf kick defense, especially against people who can set it up well. Now, I am going to lean towards Jenkins' calf kick, because if they're trading jab for calf kick, you can't just take too many calf kicks off Jenkins. You're going to eventually stop throwing the jab, and if Woodson stops throwing the jab, he's going to have a very hard fight. Woodson also, of course, has the tiny legs, and well, I mean, I don't know if there's any science behind saying it feels like the calf kick will do more damage to it. I feel like that is just intuitive. So I do think that Jenkins is going to be able to get enough damage off with the calf kicks. And then I think because he's doing damage with the kicks, he's going to start being able to get into the pocket more easily. And if he gets into the pocket, his hooks can actually deal damage there. So I am going to lean Jenkins towards decision, but I would like to see him get a TKO if he's going to win here, because he's had a lot of southpaw matchups in a row. And I do think, despite him going to the body and head kicks, that he is better against orthodox fighters. So if he's going to continue and he's actually going to be something in this division, I do want to see him get a TKO win. But my prediction is Jenkins by decision. All right, moving on to Ray Surya versus Kevin Borjas. I'll put up a poll for this. Thoughts on Bilal Hassan? We'll get to him since he's on this card. John Woodson by Gilly, because Jenkins is a weirdo and likes to grapple randomly. I don't think he's really going to give a guillotine position, though. Jenkins' kicks have broken like 4 people's arms/legs. Yeah, they're very strong. Thoughts on Silva Delgado? Silva's going to kill him. Woodson looks like that thing that used to haunt me as a kid. Got a weird feeling about this one. Fair. I mean, Borjas fights are always weird. I get what you mean. Ranked contender Kevin Borjas. Yeah, it's terrifying. Silva should run through Delgado, right? Yeah, for sure. Logically, I would pick Surya, but I might pick Borjas because it's fairly likely a heavy upset, and I want the match. Fair enough. Wish we got Silva Shehos too. We still have time for that. I think that it's too early. That fight should happen in like 2 years. Borjas graphics says he lost the last fight. Yeah, so the graphics, the stats behind them have not been updated for a minute. So my bad on that. I'll update it before next card. And Moreno win versus Morales, or is he washed? I mean, Moreno always can win, but is he washed? Yes. And do I unfortunately think he probably loses? Yes. I'm going to end the poll at 80% for Ray. So, starting with Ray. Ray is basically a pure wrestler with some submission grappling layered onto it. He technically moves and strikes somewhat like a karate stylist. He used to be very low volume. He showed more willingness to open up in the guerrilla fight, though. On the feet, it's mostly left straights and like light kicks. He does like the double leg, but he will take whatever entry is available when wrestling, and he'll just continue to chain until he gets the takedown. Interestingly, his throws are actually his most successful finishing method for the takedown. He does like to repetitively threaten, like to get to the legs and then switch to the throw once the opponent is reacting to the shots. On the ground, he is constantly flowing between positions and looking for either submissions or dominant position where he can get off ground and pound. The downside of his flowing style is that sometimes he doesn't really establish position before trying to transition, so his opponents can escape and then he has to take them down again and so on. He definitely can fade when the pace gets high, and he's lost later rounds in fights because of that, even against lower level competition. Borjas is mainly a counter striker who pokes from the outside. He'll continuously use a long jab to try to force his opponent to engage. When his opponent comes in, he tries to counter with the right hand and continue a combination if necessary. He does also sometimes try to time knees, which he may do this fight since of course Ray is going to be grappling. because his countering relies on waiting for opponents to enter, he definitely can be hit as he tries to start to counter and just fall behind because he is waiting a lot. He historically has not had great takedown defense or ability to get up if he gets taken down, but it does seem to be evolving a little bit. Now, everyone's always going to be on upset watch with a Borjas fight, but I do think they're just very different levels here. Like, Ray is legitimately a top, probably 10 fighter. Borjas had the weird fight against Lima, but I don't think Borjas is really like, even though he was underrated before that fight, now I think he's pivoted to overrated. Like, he's still a half-decent unranked fighter, not really any more than that, realistically. So, yeah, I'm going to pick Ray Saruya by submission, and I honestly think he'll get it fairly easily. All right, speaking of Lima, moving on to Namzari Butbayar versus Andre Lima for this. All right, poll is live. Oracle on my sportsbook, Rufius plus 400. Are we going to retire early with KO prop? Hopefully. I do think that Rufi can get it done. So, hopefully he makes it happen. Lima starting at 67%. I know not everyone knows who Butbayar is. But, yeah, I mean, so there'll probably be fewer votes for this one, but that's all good. Borjas' combos look good in the Lima fight, but Lima just didn't impress me by waiting into the pocket with that card for nothing. Also why I'm picking. We'll get to that. Is it just me who thinks McMillan is overrated and gets shinned by Rahiki? No, I agree with you. I think Rahiki's going to kill him. Do you see more potential in Clancy or Humphrey, both promising and young? I need to go back and watch those fights, but I missed the first half of Contender Series for that day. Did you see Lima coping for the last couple of months after his loss? It was kind of funny, but yeah. Selkild versus BSD. I'd have to do tape. Of course, Selkild had a much more impressive last performance, but I don't want to fully go off of that. Who would have won in Butbayar versus Tao? Butbayar. Tao is terrible. I'm going to end the poll at Lima at 67%. All right. So starting with Lima. Lima is primarily a Muay Thai striker. He focuses a lot on the calf kick. He tends to throw one strike at a time, whether it's the jab, cross, or the kick. He does sprinkle in takedowns, but they tend to primarily work because people worry about his striking, not because he's an amazing wrestler. He doesn't really have the ability to cage cut, and at times he can have very questionable takedown defense. Now, a lot of people bring up the Borjas fight. That was basically purely because Lima had no ability to cage cut. When Borjas just kept circling nonstop, Lima pretty much had no idea what to do. So, I don't think that says that Lima is like a terrible fighter, because his timing and his techniques have looked relatively clean otherwise. But yes, if anyone is going to circle, it definitely needs to be a consideration that between the Muay Thai style and just his own issues as a fighter, he really cannot deal with circling. Butbayar is an extremely wild and chaotic finisher. He keeps his hands like to the side and looks to land anything that could finish the fight. He switches stances a lot and tries to flow into like spinning back fists and such. He will kick with both legs, then flow into like hooks, knees, and other big counters. He will use the chaos to try to set up double leg takedowns, but he doesn't really get much drive on it. He kind of just moves into it, and if it's fully there, it's there. Because he is so wild, people with just good fundamentals definitely can pick at him. I definitely understand why people are tempted to pick Butbayar as an underdog, because Lima's last performance was not good, to say the least. But, I mean, Butbayar is just going to look to land wild stuff, and Lima should just be able to like use fundamentals to pick him apart. So, even though like I'm kind of rooting for Butbayar because he'd be a fun guy to have in the UFC, I think that Lima is just going to piece him up very easily. Lima tends to look for finishes with submissions, even if he is doing damage on the feet. So I think Lima's just going to absolutely destroy his calf, jab him up for like 10 minutes or so, then get takedowns, hunt for submissions. Maybe he finds a submission, maybe he doesn't. I'm going to lean towards that he does find the submission. So I'm going to pick Lima by submission here. All right, moving on to Bilal Hassan versus Nilson Rojas. Most people probably haven't done much tape on Rojas, so I'll just break him down without the pull here. So starting with Hassan, Hassan is a dynamic striker who is primarily a kicker. He switches stances a lot, but he's definitely more comfortable in southpaw. He constantly alternates between kicking the body and the head. When he switches to orthodox, it's primarily for calf kicks. He uses the kicks to force his opponents to enter badly so he can counter with his hands. He really loves to dig to the liver, and he will use a lot of movement on the back foot so he can set up his counters well, but on the front foot, he's definitely a lot more stationary. He does have wrestling in his skill set, but we haven't really seen much and it hasn't been tested. Rojas is also a dynamic striker, and he actually has a very similar style to Hassan, but he's more of a boxer. He also switches stances a lot, but he's more comfortable in orthodox instead. He kicks a bit at range, but he mainly wants to get into the pocket. In the pocket, he'll use a lot of head movement and dig mainly to the body as well. Both of them are like liver hunters. He will use the body strikes to help open up the head. So sometimes he'll go like hook to the body, hook to the head immediately after. Most of his defense is head movement oriented, but he does a very good job at constantly using it. It does leave his body exposed though, so that is definitely going to be an interesting dynamic in this matchup. I am a little surprised that Hassan is a minus 800 favorite, and I think that's recency bias because Rojas is a legitimately pretty good fighter. How far he's going to go is a different question, but he's not someone that I would make a debutant minus 800 against. Now, that being said, Hassan is just more talented, and he's one of these guys where movement is just natural to him. Like, you could even see when he does his cartwheel when he enters the octagon, it's just athletic in a way that most fighters don't have. He understands his body perfectly in terms of how to move. So, yeah, I'm obviously going to pick him, and I'm going to pick Hassan by TKO here. But I don't think that Hassan is as developed yet as people think. He's going to need like 3 to 5 years to fully figure out how to use his body properly. So, yeah, we're going to pick Hassan by TKO here, but this is a good fight to watch to see where he's actually at and know like how big a step up in competition the UFC can give him after this or not. All right, moving on to the promo. So if you guys are crazy enough to be betting on an event that is probably going to be at like 3 or 4 a.m. for you, you guys will enjoy my betting service. We have the best algorithms in the UFC space that can help you create your own bets or just give you straight up bets to follow. We also have what is, in my opinion, the best betting community, and I give my full in-depth analysis here far beyond what I'm able to give in these streams. So if you're interested, the link should be in the description here, and it is $25 a month. On the screen is some of the long shots that users have been able to hit in recent weeks. All right, moving on to Silu versus Levi Rodriguez. I'll put a poll for this, even though a lot of people won't know who Silu is. All right, poll is live. Who can beat JDM? Oh, who can JDM beat? Who's good at welterweight? I mean, what's the definition of good here? I've been seeing people say Hassan beats Van. Yeah, that's definitely a little too much of a stretch. What a barn burner to open the main card. Thanks, Dan. Fair. Should Marlon Vera be cut from the UFC if he loses to Charles Jourdain? And speaking on Jourdain, where is his brother from Dana White's Contender Series? Yeah, Cheeto should definitely be cut. And I think Louis Jourdain got booked, though I'm forgetting who he got booked against. Right now, it is a 50-50. What is Bilal Hassan's weakness? I think if someone starts fainting a lot against him, he's going to start having issues. But we'd have to see. I also think that if people start circling a lot, because he's so static on the front foot, he may have trouble landing. Reminder that Tuivasa is in the UFC. Yeah, that is wild. Like a JDM beat Morales. I think Morales is so overrated. JDM Morales is an interesting matchup, but I'd probably lean Morales at this point. All right, I'm going to end the poll here at 53% for Silu. So, starting with Levi Rodriguez. Rodriguez is basically a heavy-handed kickboxer. He throws a few calf kicks at range, then tries to open up with fast punches. He does have a reasonable jab and 1-2, but he generally wants to just sling hooks in the pocket. He does have one-punch knockout power with everything he throws, so he is quite dangerous. He only really uses a high guard defensively, though, so he can definitely be a little bit open. He does have reasonable takedown defense, but he struggles to get off the fence, which is what doomed him in his last fight, where he basically just got mauled. Silu is a absolutely terrifying K1 kickboxer. He is a leg kick specialist, but his boxing has improved considerably. He doesn't throw too much in combination, but he focuses on the left hook and the right straight. He is extremely fast for his size. Like, it is very interesting to see. He does stand pretty straight up, and in some ways he does have a Muay Thai-like style. He also has no grappling whatsoever. He got taken down relatively easily by a can. He lost to that can. However, he did, like, his fundamentals, I guess, sort of improved in his last MMA fight, but it's really hard to see with such low-level competition. I am pretty much just assuming if someone shoots a takedown, they're going to get him down, because he doesn't really know what to do. The only reason this is a weird one, of course, is because we know his takedown defense sucks. Even if we didn't know, this would be a very easy prediction, and then if we just found out it sucked, it would be like, oh, well, we didn't know it sucked. That being said, Levi Rodriguez is not someone who is going to be shooting good takedowns here. Could he just run forwards, grab the legs, and potentially get something? It's possible. But my thought is that he's going to try to stand first. And I don't think that's going to go well for him, and I don't think he's even going to survive to be able to wrestle. Because the gap in stand-up ability is ridiculously massive here. Like, watching C lose K1 fights is insane what this guy is able to do. Like, he actually destroyed the K1 champion with absolute ease, and that was when they tried to rig the fight against him. Like, he knocked out his opponent, basically, and they somehow called it an illegal strike and just gave his opponent time to recover. It was, like, perfectly on the side of the head. It wasn't like it was a back of the head shot. It was perfectly legal. It's like and even the commentators were losing their minds. Like, it was very clearly an attempt of rigging, and it definitely made me question what K1 is doing, to say the least. But yeah, anyways, he just took the yellow card and then just knocked the guy out the next round. His leg kicks are probably the best in the sport, probably better than Alex Pereira's. So yeah, I mean, if he could stay on the feet, unless, like, he had just no ability to fight with, like, smaller gloves or something, which is always possible, but I think he'll be okay. He should absolutely destroy Rodriguez here. So I'm going to say Silu wins by round 1 TKO, probably, like, within a minute or two, unless, like, Rodriguez shoots. All right, moving on to Alex Perez versus Sumadarji. I'll put up the poll for this. Poll is live. %86% for Sumadarji, down to 80%. Assuming by low blow. Yeah, I don't know, like, despite how last fight was going or anything like that, I genuinely don't know how that wasn't a DQ. Like, that was definitely grounds for DQ, but whatever the case. Do you think Perez was faking his injury reaction against Sumadarji? No, he got sent to the hospital after and had a lot of damage, so definitely not. Thoughts on Zenchiku entering the Matrix? That was one of the most embarrassing performances I've ever seen. If a fighter ever does that, just cut them immediately. Like, it's one thing if you were a fighter who has great head movements and then you get caught at some point, like, okay, it'll happen to everyone, right? But in Zenchiku doing that at heavyweight, against someone who only really has speed and power for the first round is just so laughable. It's funny. That's an Adrian Broner. I don't really know enough to say anything. All right, I'll end the poll at 75% for Sumiderji. Okay, so starting with Sumiderji, he is a long and rangy striker who's mainly looking to point fight, but definitely has shown increased power. He throws a lot of jabs and round kicks from range while moving around the outside. Early in the fight, he'll usually throw the cross by itself. Once he gets his timing, he'll get more comfortable throwing 1-2s and such. His defense is largely based around range and movement rather than any real pocket defense. If you can get inside on him, he definitely becomes more hittable, but he does have okay movement. He has been submission prone in the past, but definitely has been dramatically harder to take down in recent times. So, especially round one in his last fight against Perez, where he was stuffing the takedowns, is promising for him. Perez is an extremely well-rounded fighter who can fight pretty much in any domain. He does throw a lot of calf kicks on the outside. When boxing, he'll enter with extended combinations of hooks. He does have extremely good takedown defense, and is also very good at getting back to his feet if he does get taken down. Despite that, he can definitely be submission prone, especially against high-level grapplers, although that's not very likely to matter here. He does have a fast double leg and good control once he does get on top. He doesn't really wrestle nearly as much as he should, though. A lot of his fights have become unnecessarily close because he doesn't use all of his tools. He'll just choose to only strike or only wrestle. It's kind of weird. Even in most of his losses, usually is not getting outstruck. It's usually just either low volume, a dumb mistake, or something weird happens. So, because of round 2 of their first fight, I think pretty much everyone is going to say, okay, Sumidarji was looking good at the end of that. Pick Sumidarji to continue from there. But watching back the fights, I don't really agree with the analysis, because it wasn't Sumidarji made some massive adjustments and was just outclassing Perez. It was more like Perez made a really stupid mistake and got himself dropped off of that. He basically just stopped defending whatsoever and moved into the left hand. So I don't think Perez is going to do that again. I think especially after getting dropped, he's going to realize now, okay, I have to be very conscious of keeping my defense there. So I think this is going to be a very close fight, because I think this is going to be, okay, can Sumidarji do enough work at distance, or can Alex Perez just keep blitzing, stopping Sumidarji from being able to get off his range game and just winning the minutes that way? I don't think the takedowns are going to come easily for Perez unless he sets them up a lot better than his last fight. So I think this is actually just a stand-up point fight. So even though this is a very coin flippy matchup in my opinion at this point, I am still going to lean towards Perez, because I haven't seen Sumidarji be able to adjust to when people blitz him. And Perez, with a few small adjustments, definitely have a lot more success in the blitzes, where I don't know what Sumidarji is going to do to prevent them, because he hasn't shown the tools to be able to do that before. So I'm going to take Perez by decision here. As I was saying, though, very low confidence. All right, moving on to Arichi Lang versus Kai Azakura. Cool. Poll is live. Kai Azakura title run starts now. It's possible. Worst Brian Fart a good fighter has had, in your opinion? I'd have to really think about it, but there's definitely been quite a few. Exactly, fight was very close. a lot that Perez could change, but Sue will most likely fight the same way he did the first time. Yeah, exactly. Zakura is a straight fighter. It's better than that, but I get what you mean. Who do you want Azakura to fight if he KOs Richie Lang here? That's a good question. A 135. Honestly, maybe like a Bryce Mitchell fight would be good. Like, I know it is giving him a wrestler again, but we need to know that he can wrestle. Who do you think is the most boring fighter in UFC history? I mean, I know this is somehow controversial, but I think it's Islam Makhachev. All right, ending the poll at 82% for Azakura. All right, so starting with Arichi Lang. Arichi Lang is a counter striker with pretty heavy hands. He generally wants his opponent to engage first so he could sit down on hard hooks. He is a fairly static fighter who will either stand directly in front of you or slowly move forwards. When he does initiate exchanges himself, it tends to be with the lead hook into the cross. He can fall behind on volume because he's much more interested in hurting opponents than like scoring at all. He doesn't have particularly good takedown defense. Once he is taken down, though, he does do a pretty good job at staying safe. He also has decent scrambling ability and can usually work his way out of bad ground positions without giving up something huge. Azakura is a very aggressive striker who mainly wants to land the right straight and left hook. He often pairs them together in combination. He definitely can overswing, though, and get dragged into brawls, although he's gotten better over time at controlling that. If his opponents repeatedly dip, he'll start trying to time knees off of it. He has even finished fights with flying knees to the body, interestingly. Grappling is very obviously his weakness, and it looked much worse than expected so far in the UFC. When he overswings, he definitely can be countered pretty cleanly, and his chin is not amazing, so he'll get dropped pretty frequently if he does get countered. However, his recovery is quite good, so even when he gets dropped, he tends to be able to get up and continue fighting. Now, Azakura should just be too fast here, realistically, but there also is a little bit concern. Like, if he swings wild, Arichi Lang is obviously a pretty good counter striker, so I don't think this is like 100% locked or anything, but Azakura should just be the better overall fighter here because Arichi Lang is not going to be like shooting offensive takedowns and such. So I'm going to say Azakura by TKO here. I think everyone is, so that's nothing new. But yes, Azakura by TKO. All right, moving on to Yan Xiaonan versus Denise Gomez. I'll put a poll for this. At Sabatini and MVP or worse. So interestingly, both of them still average more strikes than Islam does. Why are you so biased against Islam? I mean, I'm not. He's just like one of the worst fighters to watch. He just genuinely doesn't want to fight. Or girls call that Islam cheating a lot of fights, plus increasing clinch. So yeah, that too. The cheating is annoying for sure. Why is Azakura's win not showing? Yeah, I realized my stats are out of date. I have to update that before next week. Oh yeah, my thing does have Combs at number 2, interestingly. I didn't realize that. I have a bad feeling we're all going to be extremely reactive towards Yan, going to be really hinder all of his striking. It's possible. What about GSP or any WMA fighters? I mean, GSP was at least always hunting for the submission and never had like that low volume. You're the only person I'd seen who was saying the truth about Leon Douglas. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know why everyone thought he was so free. It was really weird. Alonso versus Iwo will go power for power. Alonso usually wins in that sort of exchange. Usually, I just don't know if you could do that with Iwo, but it's possible. 81% for Jan so far, up to 83%. All right, I'll end the poll here at 76% for Yan Xiaonan. So starting with Yan is basically a pure kickboxer. She circles on the outside and does a lot of work with jabs with the occasional kick. She starts to put together combinations when her opponent comes in recklessly. She is extremely quick for the division, which is definitely interesting to watch on the tape. The biggest issue for her is her takedown defense is kind of terrible. On the ground, she also doesn't really have any ability to get up. She will try to scramble immediately before she is fully down, and that is her best opportunity because she is pretty good in that moment. But if you're able to stop that initial scramble, she will be stuck there for quite a while. The other red flag with her right now is she's been out for a while and she's getting old. So I don't know if it's because of injuries or what's been happening, but that's usually never the best sign. Moving on to Gomez. Gomez is a very well-rounded fighter who does lean on being a power puncher. She throws jabs and kicks at range, but is mainly looking for the overhand right. Because she knows she hits harder than her opponent, she's usually willing to take one to give one in the pocket. Her defense is a lot of head movement and just like leaning out of the way of strikes. She is mainly opportunistic in her takedowns, but it is definitely a big addition to her game, and she will look for double legs as well now. On the ground, she is mainly looking for the submission, but she will control well enough to win rounds and such. Now, this is a tough fight to pick because Yan is by far the better striker. But being so bad in the wrestling is worrying. Even though Gomez is not the best wrestler, it's like she's dramatically younger, she's improving. Yan is old and has been out. And I just don't know if Jan's going to be able to deal with the wrestling combination, especially because she does have to worry about Gomez is striking a bit more than she does with most opponents just because of the power. So even though I don't love it, I'm going to mildly lean towards Gomez to win a decision here. And I really think she's just going to do it via the wrestling. I think she can just get enough takedowns off to probably win the fight, even though obviously if she doesn't, then she's in trouble. All right, moving on to the main events. Umar Nurmagomedov versus Song Yadong. Put a poll for this. Lehian was being overrated heavily, so I'm glad he lost. Fair enough. Oracle, can you please explain the Octagon Oracle rank for us and how that works? So it's basically an algorithmically generated ranking. Now, it is fairly accurate in terms of predicting like who is at what skill level. But because it is purely algorithmic and not based on eye test, sometimes you can have results that are not what you're expecting. Now, sometimes it's just outsmarting us all because it doesn't have biases. But sometimes, yeah, we see it wacky. How shocked were you when Robocop went to a decision? Yeah, I was not expecting that. But to be fair, we have seen a few times now that's the circumstance where someone who gasses out can go to decision. Like we saw it in the Moreno versus Kavanaugh fight as well, where Kavanaugh still does gas, we have seen now, but he was able to hurt Moreno's calf so much that he was still able to make it to a decision fine. So it's not shocking given the path the fight went, but from what we knew beforehand, yeah, that was surprising. This card should have been Klein versus Whaley as the main event. Who would you have picked? I would have picked Klein. Do you read? Yes, I do. Right now we have 73% for Umar. Klein will be the GOAT. The only person who may give Klein difficulty in the future is Abdueva. I'm very high on Abdueva as well. Ending the poll here. All right. Poll ends it at 73% for Umar. So starting with Song. Song is a very static boxer, but he will mix in other tools as well. He does hit extremely hard, even though knockouts haven't been coming as consistently against high-level competition. All of his opponents, like, that is the main thing they say after he fight him, that he hits very hard. So I don't know what it is, but I guess his strikes just do more damage than it appears like for us. He varies between throwing singular shots and combinations more than most fighters do, who definitely does make his boxing less predictable. Because he is fairly stationary, opponents definitely can pick at him from range and circle around him. His offense is mainly built around the double leg. He does have very good takedown defense. Overall, his biggest weapon is still the combination of boxing skill and just finishing power and the intimidation it causes. His biggest weakness seems to be against movement. He can't really pin down circling opponents. The other issue is that he definitely gasses out. I think we've seen it enough times now to be confident in this. He slowed down against Yan in round 3. He slowed down against Corey in the later rounds. I'm forgetting the third example, but he's definitely slowed down pretty badly in another fight like round 3 as well. So in a 5-round fight here, I'm not sure I would trust him in the later rounds, but we'll get to that in a second. Moving on to Umar. Umar is, of course, very grappling heavy, but he has enough striking to get by. On the feet, he uses the lead leg kicking style a lot. His punching is just more as necessary, but he'll use his punching mainly as counters when his opponent engages a little too recklessly. He does like to engage after a kick and work to the body lock, but he will also just shoot on a single leg and transition from there constantly. His goal is to get to the back, but he doesn't really have great finishing ability from there, so he'll usually just end up holding for most of the rounds. He has had extremely bad decision making sometimes and questionable defense on the feet, so it's not just a singular issue, but overall he's not, in my opinion, the best fighter. Now, this is a interesting fight, probably a little bit more than I gave it credit initially, because even though on paper, Umar is a really bad matchup for Song, mainly because he's just going to circle on the outside, and I don't think Song can really track him down too easily. The amount of striking mistakes Umar has made in his last few fights has also been kind of wild. So I'm less confident in Umar than I was before tape, because Umar just getting caught by a massive strike like once for the first 3 rounds would not be the most surprising thing, to say the least. But if Song can't secure the first 3 rounds, despite Umar having bad cardio, I still think he's going to have the better cardio in rounds 4 and 5. And again, just the difficulty that Song had tracking down Figgy was not what I wanted to see. And that being said, obviously Umar had a really bad performance against Figgy as well, but Umar's was more so he just didn't do anything. Song's was like he actually couldn't get anything off, which was concerning to see, because Umar's definitely going to take that approach of like, let me just kick and move around and just get rounds by doing pretty much nothing. So even if Umar can't secure takedowns, I could still see him winning the rounds off of pretty much nothing. I really dislike Umar. As you guys know, I also think his style is just annoying. So I am obviously rooting for Song here, but I am going to pick Umar by decision, and hopefully I'm wrong about that. We'll see what happens. All right, last promo. If you guys are betting on a card that is probably at like 3 a.m. for you, you guys will probably do very well with the betting service. It has the best UFC algorithms in the world, in my opinion, and you can see on the screen some of the long shots the users have been able to win using the algorithms and such. I also give my full analysis there. We have a bunch of new tools and such that are always improving, and it is, in my opinion, the best sports betting community. So link is in description here. It is $25 a month. Feel free to DM me on Instagram if you are interested. I will answer a few questions. Oracle, are you talking about that Road to UFC chick as comp for Clan in the future? Yes. Could you go over the picks again? I missed like the first 6. Yeah, sure. Let's see. Okay. I took Cam Nelson by decision, but who knows? They both suck. I took Pilastri by decision. I took Fu by TKO. I took Long by decision. I took Jenkins by decision. I took Saruya by submission. I took Lima by submission. I took Hassan by TKO. I took Silu by TKO. I took Perez by decision. I took Azakura by TKO. I took Gomes by decision. I took Umar by decision. No problem, Ilya. Song needs to leave Faber. Probably. I don't think that gym is great anymore. I need to hear the explanation for the Perez fight. Yeah, just probably go back to that one. I did give an in-depth explanation of why. But it is a very close fight. I'm very 50-50 on it. Rob's overhand spam worked on Umar. Song's boxing while moving forward isn't the best, but I feel like it's more nuanced than that. Yes, but the problem is Rob wasn't really worried about the takedowns at all. He was fine getting taken down. Recap? Yeah, we'll get to the recap after this. Thoughts on Apokata's future, or however you say her name. Is she going to go far, or is this win basically? I genuinely think she's just going to lose the next 3 fights and get cut, because she still looks really bad. What do you think is Tom Nolan's ceiling at 155? I think he'll probably stay around the number 10 range-ish for a while. I mean, maybe he can make dramatic improvements, though. We'll see. Thoughts on Ty Miller? He's a future top 5 guy. I feel like Song might catch him more. I hope you're right. Oracle, what is your background? How do you have such extensive knowledge on UFC and MMA in general? I started mainly with boxing and karate, did a bit of Muay Thai and BJJ after that. BJJ is still my weakest by far, but I know enough to hold my own, I guess. But I'm primarily a striker. Okay, a second recap. We'll do the recap of last week in a second. One judge scored round 3 and 5 for Fluffy. The other scored 1 and 3. There was a world where they could have given him the win. Apparently, I had a 49-46 for Robocop personally, even though I had picked Fluffy. But I will say round 5 was closer than people are pretending. I just didn't think you could really score round 1 for him. Ty Miller or JPL? Ooh, that's a tough one. I'd still say JPL right now. I think he's more developed, but I think Ty Miller could be pretty scary in the future. Does anyone from this week's Contender Series have potential? I like Clancy's potential. I have to go back and watch the first few fights because I missed them. Just Joy into Umar or Song and how? I took Umar by decision. Does Buckley have a chance against guys like Ian Protez or Morales? Not really realistically. What BJJ belt are you? I can approximate, but I always did no gi, so I never bothered with the belt. I never meant to compete in BJJ, so I don't really care. I had a 49-45 Robocop. Yeah, that's also reasonable. Round 2 could be a 10-8. Clancy might have a cardio issue, but he has potential. Fair enough. What's your favorite choke? I mean, probably just rear naked choke realistically, but after that, I guess guillotines. Don't know how that was fight of the night or why people are pretending that Fluffy wasn't hugging against the cage half the fight. I'd have to go back and remember what the other fights are. When did you switch up on Miller? Didn't you say he was going to be a super fade? I don't remember saying Miller was going to be a super fade, did I? I think I said that he was going to be someone who would win later in fights, not early. So I think I was saying like the early fight props were fades, but I don't think I was ever saying like he was a bad fighter. How far does Humphrey go? I have to relook at that fight. I hadn't seen the first few. Dan Dorsonville is my favorite prospect. That's valid. Thank you. Thank you on saying great read. Yeah, I'll do the recap for last card. All right, let's do this. Ty Miller versus Michael Oliveira, who wins? Right now, I'd lean Ty Miller, but it's really hard to say because there's a lot we haven't seen from Michael Oliveira. All right, here we go. Dyer versus Reed. I don't know how Dyer took 3 rounds to put away Reed. I actually had round 2 TKO, so I was close. But yeah, I don't know why. The problem is she relies on kicks so heavily, and her kicks aren't like crazy powerful. So it's a formula for having issues whenever you're fighting anyone decent. Like, yeah, you could put away Reed, but she's not going to be able to beat anyone good. Okay, Schultz versus McVeigh. I mean, I got the first half right, in that Schultz would have the edge on the ground. I just didn't realize he would stop shooting takedowns and start trying to trade with McVeigh. So fair play to McVeigh for, I mean, looking better on the feet. He definitely looked a lot more comfortable this fight. I still don't think either of these guys is the highest level, though, to say the least, but good performance from him. Gage Young versus Dan Dorsonville. One of the better underdogs we've had in a while, and one of the prospects I've been more excited about. Dan definitely looked like he took a while to wake up because his footwork was super stiff in round 1. He just didn't look like he was fully there. But after getting hit a fair amount, and I was telling you guys, this guy has a crazy chin. Like, most people would have gone out there. And for Gage Young, I will give him his respect here. I haven't had the highest opinion of him. His footwork looked dramatically improved. So he gave Dorsonville more problems than I expected, even though Dorsonville did make the adjustments. So Gage still definitely has potential. He does need to work on his cardio a bit, I think, but he is fixing his issues. Stan, after round 1, got his footwork going, started evading the bigger shots, just putting the pressure on, and just slowly broke down Gage. So on full notice with a camp prepping for his actual opponent, I think he's going to be very scary, and I do think he will be ranked in this division. Barbosa versus Kuz. I mean, it's hard to say anything because Barbosa did what Barbosa was supposed to do. Kuz was a can that was put in there to be crushed. It is what it is. Padilla versus Nasrat. So a lot of people were like contesting this fight in weird ways. I thought Padilla looked amazing, and I'm not someone who's like particularly high on Padilla usually, but I expected Padilla to have to pressure. And the main issue is always going to be he had to find a way to get around Nasrat's left hand. The way he got around Nasrat's left hand was just never give him the opportunity to throw it. And his kicking looked better than ever. He was doing very well at range. He got the knockdown in the finish at the end. And yeah, I mean, he couldn't have done much better this fight, in all honesty, which is weird to say because I've never found Padilla specifically special. So good job to him. He seems to be improving at a dramatic rate despite being not the youngest. So yeah, I mean, I don't even know what else to say there. Like Padilla, like, oh, the other thing I will say about that is that I'm surprised he went for the finish after banking the first 2 rounds. You usually don't see fighters do that now, but I am glad he did because it made pushing him a lot easier for the UFC. So hopefully we see him get some interesting fights because with how adaptable he's shown to be, I mean, maybe he'll be able to beat some of these guys that I didn't think he'd be able to. Kennedy and Zechiku versus Shamil Gaziev. Cut Kennedy. I don't want to ever see him fight again. Like, if you lose because you're the worst fighter or whatever, if you lose because you drop your hands like a moron against a power puncher in the in the first round, rather, you just shouldn't be in the UFC. Like, the fact that, what's his name? Oldberg lost to this guy, it just gets more and more embarrassing every single fight. Good job to Gaziev, did exactly what he needed to do. Nothing else I could really say there. I don't know. Sometimes fighters impress you with their stupidity. Jamal Emmers versus Lehian Douglas. even though I didn't technically get the pick right, one of my better reads of this year. Douglas just has no defense whatsoever. He is very dangerous. If you just trade with him, yeah, it's going to be a problem. If you just stay calm, stay on the outside, lands your straight shots, you're going to put him away. He's not very durable. He has no defense. He's just not as good as people thought he was. Perfect read on Emmers versus Douglas Nakano. Thank you. So yeah, glad I got the read on this one, even if I didn't trust myself enough to go with the prediction. But good win from Emmers. I think we do need to see Emmers get a step up because he's old, but maybe he has a chance. Like maybe he can make one last run, even though I think he'll like get stopped out just before the rankings. It's possible. And he's gotten a few good wins in a row. So let him try, in my opinion. Douglas, I mean, he'll be a fun unranked guy, but he's never going to go particularly far. Anthony Wins versus Terrence Chapman. I mean, this is one of those fights where it's like, Wentz is not very good, and we saw that proven now. I mean, neither is Chapman, clearly. If Chapman actually knew how to finish a Kimura, the fight was over immediately. Wentz had no idea how to defend a Kimura. Chapman had no idea how to actually attack it, even though he had the position perfect. It's just one of those heavyweight fights where they're like, just please cut the heavyweight division. I just don't... It's just pathetic. I don't know. I was dying when he got KO'd. I took KO Emmers because of you. Glad to hear it. I was arguing Hockett would destroy Wentz, and he said, I was talking... Am I crazy? No, you're definitely correct about that. Hockett would absolutely walk through Wentz. All right, Giudice versus Chavez. Giudice with another good performance. I guess Juliana Miller is just that good that she was able to get to a close decision with Carly Giudice. I don't know. But everyone else that is like doesn't have any talent at all is just getting absolutely destroyed by Giudice. This is her second like round 1 TKO in her last 3 fights. Good on her for starting to adjust and going to the body more, because she didn't really have the power to put girls out going to the head. But going to the body, she does very well. Medeiros versus Mason Jones. Now, this is the upset that I am happy about, but I did not expect. Happy about it because Jones is a can, and I was annoyed with how much hype he was getting because he absolutely sucks at everything. Surprised because I didn't think Medeiros would do well with the pressure, because Medeiros usually needs a bit of space to operate. However, Medeiros' addition of the elbows has been incredible. Like, he basically completely negated the weakness he had, and now is just beating fighters that I never thought he was going to be able to with his style because of it. So Medeiros hopefully starts being underrated now and gets a decent fight. And Jones can go back to the regional scene because he's not UFC quality. I was making my girl Sofia Montenegro look awful. I actually don't think Montenegro is as bad as Chavez by any means. I think she just needs a few adjustments. All right, moving on to RDR versus Roman Dolidze. Speaking of go back to the regional scene, I don't want to see Dolidze fight again. I don't know what that was. I don't know who told him it was a good idea to lay down in the center of the octagon and give RDR the position that he wanted to, and then damn leg locks while you're being hit in the face for 3 minutes. What's unfortunate is I can't even get a read on RDR from this fight. Like, I don't know how much better he is at light heavyweight, because Dolidze didn't even try to fight him. So, yeah, RDR did nothing wrong. Fair play to him. Good job. But this doesn't tell me much. So, we'll have to see what happens in the future. All right, Sergey Spivak versus Vitor Petrino. See, it's funny. I made a comment like a few fights before this that I hate when wrestlers forget they are wrestlers, and Spivak just like showed the epitome of that by just like barely trying any takedowns whatsoever. Like, dude, you're not going to outbox Petrino. I know Petrino's not that good, but it's still not going to happen. So I don't know what Spivak's game plan was coming into this. Like, let me just try to knock out Petrino on the feet. I mean, Petrino did a good job with the calf kicks. That probably made it harder for Spivak to shoot later in the fight. But I don't know why he decided to wait until he was compromised, until he was going to try to wrestle at all, and still barely try to wrestle. Like you're not gonna beat Petrino on the feet, dude. You're a grappler. I still don't think Petrino is very good here, but I mean he's a top 7 heavyweight now, so it's what it is. The weird result of the night, RoboCop winning by decision here. I'm surprised that Hernandez couldn't check a calf kick for his life. It was a great fight, I still think, despite the fact that, like, yeah, there was some clinch stalling time to say the least. But Hernandez, like, trying to make the comeback in rounds 3 and 5 and so on was fun. So I don't think it was a bad fight by any means. I still don't have the highest opinion of RoboCop because I feel like he gets hit so much on the feet, and he doesn't have a great chin. Like, Hernandez doesn't have any power. So, yeah, he wasn't going to be the one to put out RoboCop, but someone else will. That being said, also with Hernandez, it's like, how do you have this many flaws in your skill set at this age? You're not young anymore. And, like, you should be at the top of your game at this point. Like, 33 is pretty much the absolute prime for fighter. So, bad performance from Hernandez, not in terms of, like, willpower, but in terms of how can you not check a calf kick for your life. Reasonable performance for Rodriguez, even though I feel like he should have gotten the finish in round 2. But I don't think either of these fighters is going much further in their career. I need Hackett to run through Petrino, still hate Petrino. Fair enough, yeah. Blades just shows up for the check, feels like it, yeah. Horrible stoppage too. Yeah, I get what you mean. RoboCop randomly got plus 20 to his cardio out of nowhere. The thing is, I don't think his cardio was even that good. I think it was just that Hernandez couldn't do anything after his calf was fried. Hernandez so weak everywhere. Yeah, I get what you mean. Did you do predictions for Road to UFC? My boy Suzuki is the future of flyweight goat. I don't do full Road to the UFC predictions because I'm not watching tape on all the fights, to be honest, but Suzuki could definitely go far, I agree. I mean, the two highest people I'm on for Road to the UFC this week are Suzuki and Abdueva. Hernandez took so much damage, like I don't even know what he does for me. Yeah, me neither. Hernandez, if he chin abuse, could have KO'd RoboCop. It's possible. He probably should have tried that at some point. RoboCop versus Hamzat. Hamzat would probably knock him out, not gonna lie. RoboCop looked gassed in later rounds. Yeah, for sure. Love Fudika. She's a star, but she's alright. Not the best, though. She's solid. I mean, we'll see if she gets through this fight. I think she will, but I'm not confident. Ellen versus Pico predictions. Ellen round 1 knockout. Any opinions on the Rotolo brothers in MMA? Not particularly. I don't know enough on it. RoboCop was rusty in the clinch. Fair. Watching tape, some of these Dana White Contender Series is so hard to find. Some of the fights are Khabib level can crushing. It's beautiful to watch. Yeah, I mean, Contender Series this year is so weird. It's like they stopped caring about bringing in good fighters. I don't know what it is. WMMA Tyref, Maki Fukuda. Fair. Hamzat versus Imavov and Sean. I probably would lean towards Hamzat beating Imavov, but I'd probably pick Sean. Early 3-3 picks. I'd have to look over the fights. Hamzat versus Kaio, who wins? I'd actually probably lean Kaio there now. Were you joking or being serious about Ellen round 1 KO? Can't tell. No, definitely serious about Ellen round 1 KO. I mean, Pico is very chinny, doesn't have great defense, and isn't really amazing offensively either. I think Ellen should knock him out very easily. Why are so many people taking Brady to beat Bonfim? Am I missing something? Obviously, no tape it or anything, but I don't understand. I think Brady is just one of those styles that always looks so dominant that people want to take it. But yeah, I do feel like retape, of course, Bonfim should be the lean. Favorite fighter to watch right now? Probably John Silva. Who else? There are like Charles Oliveira, of course, but he always scares me when he fights. It used to be Yuri until he changed his style. How far can Saidov go? Pretty far, I think. I mean, I think he'll be like top 7 at one point at least. Can't be an Oracle stream without mentioning Jean Silva. True. What would be the path to victory for Delgado? Pray. Who beats Khabib at 170 and 155? I think honestly Ian Gary may have had a chance. I think Gabriel Bonfim would have had a solid chance. At 155, I mean, I would have picked Khabib against Oliveira, but Oliveira would have had a chance for sure. Topuria, I would probably pick. Who would have you liked to see Silva fight instead of Delgado? I mean, I would have liked to see Aljo, but he doesn't want to take the fight, I don't think. Rufy versus Armin prediction. Rufy knockout. If John Silva wasn't neurodivergent, he would have beat Lopez. But if he wasn't neurodivergent, he would have less advantages elsewhere, so. Getting dropped in round 1 by Wooden Philly. Silva will kill him in the first exchange. I think Silva would take a little bit of time to get his reads, but then yeah, he'll kill him after that. I'll just said he wanted more time. Yeah, I get it. How far can Christian Awake and Jalen Turner go? I think he's still going to lose his next fight, to be honest, but we'll see. Van versus Pantoja 2 prediction. I'm probably taking Van TKO. Round 4. How would you see Silva versus Aljo going? I'd probably take Silva to win in like rounds 3 or 4. You keep saying you don't think he's pick any fighter you don't like, good fighter, but they win. Maybe rethink how you judge a fighter as and maybe skewing your picks in the wrong direction. Not really. If I have a low opinion of a fighter, I'm going to pick against them. Like, they can always change my mind. Some fighters change my mind at some points, but I tend to think fighters are low level for a specific reason. It usually ages well. Volk versus Movzar. Volk. Tyra versus Pantoja, who wins? I'd still lean Tyra there. Allen versus Pico prediction. Also, the fight makes no sense to me. Yeah, I'm taking Allen TKO. Dawson versus whatever his name is, Aliev. I'm probably taking Dawson. Why do you think there's been a lot of upsets this year? I'm not entirely sure yet. I am still trying to figure that out. I've gonna mull Tamirov, right? I'm so scared for Kavman. Yeah, Kavno should knock out Tamirov. I'm actually not as like concerned about that matchup as a lot of other people are, because it's just someone throwing wild overhands. Like, it's a bad matchup for Ursag in a sense, but it's really not for Cav. Tyra would beat Van in a rematch. It's possible if he just is more content with half guard. What did Tyra do wrong against Van? What should he improve? He rushed too much. Like, he has to be content with using weaker positions for a longer period of time. He really wanted the finish. He should have just waited and let the finish come to him eventually. Why are people so high on Cam Roston? I don't find him high level like I see him losing to Nurmagomedov. Cam Roston's decent everywhere, but I kind of agree with you. I don't have like a crazy opinion of him. Are we ever going to get a Japanese UFC champion? I still think there are possibilities for it, for sure, but it may take some time. Also, a lot of prospects have been disappointing this couple of years. True. Do you think Van would have beaten Rob in their first fight? Or sorry, do you think Jan would have beaten Rob in their first fight had his right hand not been injured? No, not really. Like, a lot of people point to that, but fighters are injured all the time. Like, Rob went in with injuries also. Rob wins the second fight with a lot of injuries also. It's like, who cares? I'm sure Jan went in the second fight with some injury as well. It's just pointing to injuries after the fact is stupid. Also, 0 ground and pounds and thoughts on Shadalayev. I mean, Shadalayev is on way too many PEDs to get into the UFC from what I can guess. Ben was letting Tyra pass his guard where Tyra had less control, which was smart, but Pantoja is much more methodical and experienced. True. AJ McKee versus Shadalayev. I'll have to do tape on McKee. I might lean McKee, to be honest. You think GSP was on steroids? No, I don't think so, because he was pushing very heavy for PED testing. All right, guys, I am probably going to wrap it up here. Thank you guys for coming. Do consider checking out the betting service if you are betting on this event. If you guys are going to wake up at 3 in the morning or whatever it is, I hope you guys enjoy the event. So have a good night, everyone, and I will see you guys next time.